You have the right to remain silent, but we'd prefer if you didn't.
Spinning the law, spinning the law.
This is Malzberg's
Spinning the law.
Spinning the Law.
Spinning the law, spinning the law.
With attorney Kendall Coffee.
He joins us right now. Hello, Kendall.
Hey, Steve. How are you today?
Good. Cold as ice.
Well, we're warm as sunshine could be, so too bad for you.
Yeah, too bad for us. You're telling me. Too bad for the folks who are going to go to the Super Bowl, and too bad for the folks who are going to be at the Rangers-Devils game at Yankee Stadium on Sunday. And it's they're all going to freeze like we freeze every day. Anyway, someone who wasn't freezing and was right down in your neck of the woods, Justin Bieber. This kid is out of control, and he got himself arrested. He was reportedly drag racing with an expired license on the streets of South Beach, closed streets off, allegedly, resisted arrest, cursed out the cops, admitted he was doing drugs and prescription painkillers. He smiled very nicely for his mugshot, which we have on the screen right now, and he's been released on bail.
Well, it's certainly kind of a lawyer's dream and a lawyer's nightmare, isn't it, Steve? On the one hand, you got a famous celebrity who can, definitely pay the defense fees. I'm sure of that. But on the other hand, he kind of did just about everything wrong in terms of responding, beginning with getting drunk, driving a super expensive car in a private neighborhood. And then he does what, he basically says, I've been consuming alcohol and maybe some marijuana and maybe some prescription medicine. He rolls off a whole slew of F words. Wow. So the bottom line is not, is this guy going to get convicted of something, but is the reaction to some kind of celebrity trying to get away with this stuff in our community or in any community going to be such that somebody expects him actually to do some jail time for this? What's going to be the message coming out of this thing? He's not a career criminal. We know that. He's just some sort of out-of-control young guy. But on the other hand, he's a very high-visibility, out-of-control young guy. And the question always comes up, is it fair or unfair for celebrities to receive treatment in the justice system that sends a message?
Right. No, that's a very good question. And usually these high-profile cases with impaired driving or whatever, alcohol, related or drug related or whatever. We could Lindsay Lohan. What kind of, that could be a soap opera, that could be a reality series that could go on for years. The way it's played out. She served a couple of days in jail here and there. But a guy like him, now let me ask you this: does it matter? Say in California where they raided his home in some egg throwing thing. Let's say they find some culpability with that. Would that case necessarily have a bearing on what happened in Florida when it comes to sentencing or deciding how to punish, or does one thing have nothing to do with the other?
Well, any kind of prior record, especially if there's a prior conviction, adds to the calculus in terms of imposing a sentence. But, again, you don't want people who are famous to be above or below the law. But judges are entitled to consider the message and the deterrent value of something like this. So if Justin Bieber walks out with 20 hours of community service after this, after getting obviously dangerously drunk and driving at some crazy, speed, which is what the police allege, and we know everyone's entitled to presumption of innocence.
Right.
Maybe there are some other facts.
Right.
We know that. But if all that's true, a judge is going to really struggle with this one because on the one hand, you don't want to punish him worse than some crazy kid from a local junior college. On the other hand, do you want the public to think, the rich people can drive like crazy and get away with it?
All right, well, let me ask you one more question before we move on from this, what some would consider a waste of a story. But if he's guilty, if DWI, resisting arrest, and driving without a license, if that's all true, what would the normal person get on average?
Well, in our system, realistically, a normal person would probably get maybe months, maybe weeks, and sometimes, depending upon extenuating circumstances, they could get house arrest. There is a range of dispositions, and I don't want to suggest that, breaking rocks in a state prison would be a fair outcome for anybody given these charges. But the question is, does a judge want to allow this to be a scenario where it's seen that somebody with money and connections can behave rather badly and get away without any consequences? That's going to be the difficult question for some judge at some point.
Right. All right, let's move on. We're talking to Kendall Coffee, famed attorney, author of Spinning the Law. If you haven't read that book, go get it. It's a few years old by now, but just an amazing story. Kendall's been involved in so many high-profile cases. Let me ask you about the owners of the Christian Bakery. We've talked about this before. They refused to make a cake for a lesbian couple, and they're facing hundreds of thousands of dollars in fines now after they were found guilty of violating the couple's civil rights, and they were found guilty by the Oregon Bureau of Labor and Industries, who said that they found substantial evidence that Sweet Cakes by Melissa discriminated against the lesbian couple and violated the Oregon Equality Act of 2007, a law that protects the rights of the LGBT community. Now, the bakery owners could still, use the courts here, but this is certainly, I would imagine, a huge strike against them.
Well, and there have been a series of these cases. We've talked about some of them before, Steve, where particular private business people, one included photographers, others have included bakeries, have said, I am not anti any group. I'm certainly not anti-gay, and I'm even willing to the person's viewpoint, which in all these cases, no one has disputed that it's a sincere religious belief, but that religious belief about participating in a wedding through either, pastries, a wedding cake, or photography is something that the person feels violates their religious freedom. I think it's an important enough issue as we look at this equation between what is seen as individual liberties, the rights of same-sex couples, and the religious rights of people in this country. It's sufficiently important that there needs to be a court at some significant level to speak out on this. Most of the times we've talked about, the U.S. Supreme Court has been extremely respectful of religious freedom. Hard to predict how this one is going to turn out, but I think at some point you're going to get a important court decision because this issue keeps recurring.
Yeah, it does. And as you mentioned, there was a Colorado baker in December ordered by a judge to either serve gay weddings or face fines. A New Mexico Supreme Court ruled in August that 2 Christian photographers who declined to photograph a same-sex union violated the state's Human Rights Act. Washington Attorney General filed a lawsuit against a florist who refused to provide flowers for a same-sex couple's wedding. And it goes on and on and on. So you're right. I mean, this does have to be adjudicated in the courts. There was a man on death row was finally put to death, I think early this morning, if I'm not mistaken, or late last night. The execution of he was a Mexican national. It was temporarily put on hold yesterday as the Supreme Court considered appeals. 46-year-old Edgar Tamayo, killed in the Texas death chamber. It had been scheduled and then postponed, as I mentioned. And apparently there's a technicality here. He's been on death row for 20 years. I heard a report today that he had said, it's enough. I'm ready. It's time. This has gone on for too long. And even Secretary of State John Kerry got involved and said that he shouldn't be put to death, which to me is outrageous. And it's all because of the claim that when he committed this murder, he wasn't told that he could approach the Mexican consulate. Is that it?
Yeah. There's a treaty which the U.S. and other countries have signed that provides that an inmate in these circumstances is to be informed of their right of access to officials at their consulate, which could, in theory, help them provide legal assistance. It's come up a number of times. The courts have consistently said that that is not a treaty obligation that is going to prevent a little bit at the federal level in terms of trying to accommodate some of the interests of foreign government. But no one has tried to tell Texas. I mean, no one in the U.S. government would have the ability to tell Texas, you cannot obey your laws. You cannot honor the laws of your state. And so I think the controversy is going to continue. But I think what has undoubtedly been happening in recent years is that inmates who are foreign nationals are being, and somebody was wrongly executed or even is wrongly on death row because they were not informed of their rights under a treaty obligation at an earlier time.
Right. All right. One more. You got the Kansas sperm donor story, correct?
I didn't get that one.
Okay, then that's our. Then I wasn't sure if you did or not. So let's move on to the other one, which we've talked about, and that involves still the case where the Texas woman is declared brain dead. She was pregnant 14 weeks at the beginning. Now it's over 20 weeks, and the father or the husband of the woman and the mother of the woman both say that this woman, who's now brain dead on life support, had said verbally she never wanted to be on machines, to be kept alive if anything ever happened to her. But a Texas state law requires that she be kept alive if there's a baby involved. And now they have done an exam, apparently, of the baby and found that it could be deformed and could be, could have damage to the baby. And a judge is going to weigh in on this after hearing. They're going to rule that if the so-called fetus is deformed or not healthy, this gives the judge some leeway to make a ruling that would sacrifice that baby.
Yeah, I think you're right, actually. I think that the judge is going to look for a narrow way to rule for the family on this one. The family wants all life-sustaining procedures terminated, and without directly addressing the constitutionality of the law. And this is an important question because close to 30 states have some sort of law which provides protection to unborn life, even in the event of what could be, for example, comatose condition of a pregnant woman. These laws, even though they're in most places in the country, have never really had an important court decision one way or the other. And that's unfortunate because it put all of the individuals involved in this tragedy in extreme uncertainty. And how painful or frustrating is it to know that already this case has been dragging on for weeks?
Yeah.
The collapse, the tragedy occurred after 14 weeks. Now we're 22 weeks into the pregnancy. There's still no judicial answer. And so whatever comes out of this, I hope there is some guidance for the future, but I don't have a good feeling about how.
Yeah, neither do I.
It will be tragic either way.
Unfortunately. All right, Kendall, thank you very much, sir. Appreciate your time as always.
Okay, Steve. Thank you.
Thank you. Kendall Coffee, ladies and gentlemen, as we spinning the law with Kendall Coffee here on the Steve Malzberg Show. When we have another segment left in this hour, and next hour, just so you know, Larry Sabato will be here, Jennifer Rubin will be here, and much, much more. That's if you keep it where it is, right here on the Steve Malzberg Show, Newsmax TV and radio.